What if human beings are far more powerful than they have been conditioned to believe? What if the body is capable of more healing? The brain is capable of more coherence, and consciousness is capable of more transformation than modern survival based living allows us to experience. Now, after hearing all these stories, we arrived at the final realization, not about magic, not about blind belief, not about escaping science, but about possibility, human possibility. Now think about everything we explored. A woman trapped in chronic pain who suddenly experienced freedom, a man whose nervous system collapsed under chronic stress, who slowly rewired his brain and body, a woman consumed by autoimmune illness, who reconditioned herself emotionally and biologically, a doctor trapped in analytical limitation who experienced profound coherence and healing. Different lives, different bodies, different struggle, and yet every story pointed toward the same deeper truth. Human beings are not only physical, they are neurological, emotional, energetic, conscious. Now, this matters because modern life trains people to live almost entirely in survival mode. Stress, fear, pressure, urgency, comparison, emotional overload, constant stimulation, and over time, people begin forgetting what true coherence feels like. Now, survival itself becomes identity. The body memorizes stress, the nervous system memorizes urgency, the brain memorizes limitation, and slowly people begin believing they are only their conditioning, only their history, only their symptoms, only their past. Now, this is the tragedy of survival consciousness, because survival narrows possibility. The person stops creating and starts reacting, stops living and starts protecting, stops expanding and starts contracting. Now, this is where all the stories changed direction at some point. Every person interrupted the survival cycle, not perfectly but intentionally, through awareness, meditation, presence, surrender, elevated emotion, and repeated internal transformation. Now something remarkable happened. The nervous system started changing. The emotional baseline started changing. The body started responding differently. Now, this is one of the greatest realizations in human transformation. The body responds to the state we repeatedly live in. Now, think about this carefully. Every repeated emotion becomes chemistry. Every repeated thought strengthens circuitry. Every repeated state conditions biology. Now, if years of stress can shape the body, then perhaps years of coherence can reshape it too. Now, this does not mean humans are infinitely powerful in a fantasy sense. It does not mean denying medicine. It does not mean ignoring biology. But it does suggest something profound. Human potential may be far greater than the survival mind believes. Now, perhaps the greatest prison is not physical, it is identity. The emotional identity built through repetition. I am broken, I am anxious, I am sick, I am limited, I am my past. Now, the nervous system keeps reproducing those familiar states automatically. Now, transformation begins when awareness becomes greater than conditioning. When the person realizes, I am not only my history. Now, meditation becomes important because meditation interrupts the old self for a moment. The body stops rehearsing survival, stops rehearsing fear, stops rehearsing limitation. Now, the nervous system experiences stillness, and in that stillness, new possibilities emerge. Now elevated emotional states becomes deeply important to love, gratitude, wholeness, freedom, connection. Because elevated emotions create biological coherence. The brain synchronizes differently. The nervous system regulates differently. The body receives different signals. Now perhaps healing begins. The moment the body finally experiences safety deeply enough to stop protecting itself constantly. Now throughout these stories, one thing appeared repeatedly. People experienced themselves beyond the old identity, beyond the old emotional itself, beyond the old emotional self, beyond the body's familiar conditioning. And in those moments, something changed. Now, this is where the word supernatural becomes misunderstood. Most people hear the word and imagine fantasy, miracles, magic, but perhaps supernatural simply means going beyond the limited conditioning we once believed was normal, beyond chronic survival, beyond emotional memorization, beyond unconscious limitation, beyond the familiar self. Now think about this deeply. A stressed nervous system has become normal. Anxious thinking has become normal. Emotional exhaustion has become normal. Disconnection has become normal. So perhaps living with deep coherence, presence, wholeness, clarity, love, and elevated awareness appears supernatural only because survival has become so common. Now, maybe the human body was never designed only to survive. Maybe it was also designed to adapt, to heal, to connect, to evolve, to transform. Now, perhaps consciousness itself plays a larger role in biology than we once understood. Because every experience changes the brain, every emotional state changes chemistry, every repeated pattern conditions the nervous system. Now, if unconscious suffering can shape the body, perhaps conscious transformation can shape it too. Now, this final realization is not about becoming someone else. It is about remembering what becomes possible when the nervous system is no longer trapped in survival. Now, maybe healing begins the moment we stop emotionally rehearsing the past every day. Maybe transformation begins the moment awareness becomes greater than conditioning. Maybe the body changes when the emotional environment within us changes consistently enough. Now think about your own life. What state are you rehearsing every day? Fear, stress, urgency, hopelessness, or possibility? Because the body listens constantly. The brain adapts constantly. The nervous system learns constantly. Now perhaps the future of human transformation is not only external technology. Perhaps it is inner technology too. Awareness, breath, attention, emotion, consciousness, presence. Now these stories remind us of something extraordinary. Human beings may be far more adaptive, far more intelligent, and far more powerful internally that they were ever taught to believe. And maybe the greatest transformation begins the moment a person realizes they are not trapped forever inside the person they have been.